Hello. How are you? Brent was really concerned about Gráfica Bandeirantes. He's going to dream, have a nightmare tonight with this. You know, this has been a really outstanding roller coaster. This season, multi-pad season here, started right after the International Assembly. I was and I am still suffering from shingles. Yeah, here on my right face. And I said, this will not prevent me from doing what I have to do. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to change, to exercise leadership, to convey the message for people. And I will not squander it. They invited me to go to Istanbul, Turkey. Now, very nice place. For the Peace Center inauguration, celebration, opening a couple weeks ago. And I said, no, my job is here. My job is in the United States for the multi-pads. And this year particularly compressed because the International Assembly was moved to February. So I can only do 14 multi-pads. I was supposed to do 21. So this is my 11th. I'm still surviving, despite the fact that I drove from Chicago this morning. I love driving. I told my assistant, Kelly, I said, Kelly, if it is a trip that's under 250 miles, I want to drive. Because I'm sick of undressing myself for TSA. It's not a very nice picture, I tell you. You know, taking the belt, taking everything off. I said, I'm sick, I'm tired of undressing myself I will do it, but for the fundraiser of the Rotary Foundation. I can do that. And the funny thing about this shingles is I was detected with this disease. I don't even know what to call it because it's nobody's fault but my own. And the doctor, a Rotarian, of course, the Koreans, when they detected a small rash on my upper lip, they said, Mario, this doesn't look very nice. We're going to take to a Rotary doctor. So I had an interview with him and he said, Mario, this is shingles. And I said, what the heck is shingles? Oh, it's smallpox. Did you have smallpox? I said, a century ago. And I said, okay. I'm positive this is shingles, but I'll just have a small checklist. You know, as a doctor, I have to follow certain procedures. And it said, you are traveling a lot. Check. 45 countries in 18 months. Is that good enough for you? You're not sleeping very well. Are you? Quality of sleep? I said, well, what about sleeping on planes? Does that count? I said, yeah. You are suffering from several variations in temperature. I say, absolutely. I was in Beijing, China, was -5 Celsius, and then 10 days after I was in Singapore, was 35 above Celsius. I said, okay, check. And I said, what about alcohol? I said, check, check, check. Don't ask the alcohol question. But that was to show that, you know, Rotarians care about each other. We do care about people. When, you know, Rotary is good wine and dining, but we are much better when somebody is in trouble. Like when somebody's sick, when somebody is going through a hard time. I got an email about an exchange student, 16 years old from Brazil, District 4480, São José do Rio Preto, going to Brussels. She's in Brussels right now. She was diagnosed with cancer. So she's going into chemotherapy as we speak. And the district governor in Belgium was a lady, a woman. She said, we are doing everything we can. And she's in a hospital in Belgium, and she's probably getting ready. If she can sustain a 14, 12 plane ride to Brazil, she will probably be transported to Brazil in safe conditions for her treatment, ongoing treatment in Sao Paulo. But she has been there for like the last 30, 35 days, 7 weeks. And she has been treated like, a person of the family of this Belgian Rotarian. So we gather our troops around her. She sent me some pictures, and she said she's doing much better because of the comfort and care that Rotarians are giving her. And it's hard to think of any other group of people who would help a sick 16-year-old girl from Brazil in Belgium. So we are a special bunch of people. And that's why we have to keep growing our membership. Some people call me Super Mario. You know that I have Mario, Super Mario. I can say that with an Italian accent. Super Mario, porca piccia. But, we have to increase our membership. I'll show you the numbers. This is what is happening worldwide in terms of membership. These are actual numbers, real numbers from our membership committee. This is what's happening over the last 5 years in terms of membership in Asia. Asia grew almost 40,000 Rotarians net over the last 5 years. Australia and Great Britain are plummeting in terms of membership. That's the reason they are today the subject of 2 pilot projects financed by your money, Rotary's money, everyone else's money, are financing those 2 projects in Australia and GBNI. Europe, Africa, Middle East are stagnant or stabilized. The two verbs or the 2 nouns. I prefer the word stagnant because stagnant means you have to do something, right? If you say you're stagnant, it drives you to action. If you say stabilized, it drives you to the couch. So we are not stabilized, we are stagnant. And Europe is stagnant, and so is Latin America. See, a little drop, a 10% drop. But US, Canada, and Caribbean are plummeting in terms of membership. And that is really the reason of my constant presence in multi-pets across the US and Canada. Because that's where the buck has to stop. That's where we have to buck the trend. That's where we have to avert this falling membership trend that has been going on for quite a considerable number of years. In the last 20 years, we've lost 120,000 members here in the districts in North America. And I'm going to show you individually what this implies. People ask me, Mario, do you have the solution? Because I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. No one is responsible. But we are all responsible. I mean, it's my problem. Membership is my problem. It's not only the president's club or the club president's problems. I said, I don't have the final answer. I don't have the solution. Otherwise, I'll be Paul Harris resurrected, right? I'm not. Although sometimes I think I'm following along his hairline. But there is some data that suggests that new club creation might be a solution or a way to help us solve this problem, at least stop the bleeding. And those are interesting numbers. We have chartered 4,750 new clubs over the last 5 years. That means less than 1,000 a year. If you consider that we have 38,000 Rotary clubs worldwide, that means roughly 2.5% of new club creation in our database. If you are in a company, if you're in a business and you're growing 2.5% a year, you're not doing very well. You're not replenishing the losses, right? And that is what is happening here at Rotary also. We are not replenishing our losses. We are not fulfilling, we are losing more than we are gaining. The only reason that's gaining, not coincidentally, not surprisingly, is Asia, which responds for almost 60% of new club creation. And that's the reason they're growing. One factor. There may be others. Of course, I'm no dumb. They're in a different Rotary age. Rotary is a coveted institution to belong to in Taiwan, for instance. Taiwan has grown 127% over 20 years. India has grown 102% over 20 years. The Philippines is growing 52% over the last 20 years. Korea is growing. My successor, Sang Koo-yoon, who hails from Korea, he comes from a country that's growing. My country is not growing. Brazil is stagnant, 51,000 for the last 20 years. And I told them, don't shame me. You guys have to grow, but grow sustainably. Don't create fake clubs, fake Rotarians. That's not what we do. I've seen it happen in some parts of the world where governors, just to be on stage to get a pin of the major, whatever, the big governor of the year in membership growth, they manipulate the numbers, they fake the numbers, they create false clubs. That's not what I'm talking about. This is not Rotary. I won't even go into that territory. I want us to create real clubs. How many real clubs have been created in North America over the last 5 years? 263. 10% of what Asia created. This is the biggest Rotary territory on the planet. We have 8,100 clubs here in the US and Canada. That's my biggest market. I'm talking to you, you are my biggest market. That's why I'm here. And not in Asia where everything is going well, or in Istanbul where we're celebrating. That's not where a president-elect should be at. I should be here, that's where I am. That's why I'm jumping from one place to the other, talking about the same things, because this situation is widespread across the US. I cannot accept that US can only create 53 clubs every single year in such an immense territory with outstanding opportunities economic-wise. Diversity, you guys have diversity. I was concerned when I went to England. I went to a club in Newcastle upon Tyne. Did you notice the British accent? Newcastle upon Tyne. And I was welcomed by the club president, who gave me extraordinary 5 minutes to speak to the club. I said, for God's sake, I'm the president-elect. How many minutes would you give the Pope? Then he realized, well, okay, I'll give you 8. But the average age of that club was 72. I was the youngest kid on the block. And I'm Rotary president for God's. I said, I'm 68. So they have an additional problem. Besides the diminishing number of members, they have an aging problem. And I don't see it here because I see younger people in the audience. Everywhere I go in North America, I see younger people in the audience. I see a diverse community. I see younger people, I see people from different races, from different religions. I see Latinos, I see black people, I see younger people, older people. That's what we want. We grow on those things. So we have a much more severe problem in GBMI because it will be harder to rejuvenate the brand. People ask me, Mario, you talk a lot about tactics. You don't talk about strategy. Okay. Strategy for me is rejuvenate the Rotary brand. Membership is just one tactic. But we have to use it because otherwise we won't be here. So, those are the pets that I've been to: Mid-Atlantic, Pacific Northwest, Seattle, Southwest in Los Angeles, Lone Star, Texas, of course. I don't have to say Texas. But see, all the numbers are 2004, 2024. You have the numbers. I can give you the numbers afterwards for, to upload in your website for the multi-pets. They are all diminishing numbers. Florida, Orlando, Northeast Boston, Far West San Jose, California, Carolinas, Greensboro. I was there last week. Old Man River was in Mississippi, Natchez, Mississippi. That's the one I lost because I was, during those travels, you have some quite experiences. One of them was to get lost in the airport in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with 8 gates. It's a huge airport, 8 gates. I missed a flight in 8 gates. Because I kept, the screen would not show the gate and Delta would not advise me where the gate was. When I finally reached the gate, the attendant said, "Sir, that's your plane. It's going. You're staying." So I stayed 10 hours at the beautiful Baton Rouge, Louisiana airport. I got caught up with emails though. So not everything is bad. So Lincoln of Lincoln in Effingham last week, and then now we're in Great Lakes, right? But see what I'm talking about? The number of members? 20 years ago? I know it's a long time ago. But you have to look from a historical point at the long-term trend, right? 2 or 3 years don't make that much of a difference. You don't feel it. That's the problem. We're losing here 6,500 members net every single year in North America. 6,500 members is less than 1 member per club, so nobody notices. But we are trickling blood little by little. It's not a hemorrhaging. We're not hemorrhaging, but we're losing blood. And we think everything is okay because we lose blood very slowly. But if you gather 20 years of data, then you see that you've lost 1/3 of your membership over the last 20 years. That is irreplaceable. There is no other place on the planet that can offset this loss. 120,000 people, I tell you the numbers. Germany has 58,000. Brazil has 51. So if we put together the entire Rotary population of Brazil and Germany, we got 109,000 members, less than the states lost in 20 years. So it has to start here. The bleeding has to stop now in the United States of America and Canada. Because there is no other place on the planet, not even India, which is a growing powerhouse in Rotary. India cannot offset this loss. And I see potential here. I see opportunity here. I see dynamism. I see diversity. I see a lot of good qualities that may come. So we have to change this. Those are the ones that I'm going over the next couple of days. or weeks. I don't even remember now. I've been on the road for such a long time. But, you know, there are some ways we can work this out. This is not a final recipe. It's just a list of suggested ways to approach this problem. Prioritize the club experience. The club experience is something that your clubs determine which one is going to be. I have absolutely no power over your club culture. Meaning, if your club decides not to grow and die, it will die. There is nothing I can do from my office on the 18th floor of Evanston, One Rotary Center. I cannot change your club culture. I cannot even change my club culture. I faced a struggle when I proposed to my club, I suggested to my club that we should charter a satellite club. You're going to face this. Because I did, when I was director in 2019, I said, my wife never wanted to join my club. Does that sound familiar? She said, nah, it's your club, it's your thing, it's your way of doing Rotary. I have a different concept of Rotary. And she knows a lot because I married her after I married Rotary. That's a big struggle. 6 months before, so she's kind of jealous of Rotary, I understand. She always says I'm the second, she's the second in my life, which is not true. Our attorneys attest that she's the only one. And I said, well, honey, why don't you join my club? She said, no, that's your thing. It's your Rotary club. If I want to join Rotary, I want to do a different thing. I said, okay, why don't you charter a satellite club? Well, try to convince your club. Because they're going to have to sponsor us. So I tried it for a year and a half. In the old guy's table, to which I proudly belong, I've been in Rotary 44 years. I know what the old guy's table looked like, because I'm a member of that. Especially now, which I'm the president, I'm at the head of that table. So they said, that's the second grade club, Mario. You're a director, but you don't know what you're talking about. I said, okay, why don't we give it a try? The ladies in our club, my wife, the governor's wife, your wife, the president's, the club president's wife, they don't want to join us, but they would be glad to open a new club, satellite club. They don't want to be independent. But they want to belong to Rotary in a different way. They don't want to meet every Thursday at a restaurant, same old restaurant that we meet. Once they met at a fashion show, and then they went to dinner afterwards. Then they have a pizza place. Then they have a happy hour. They do projects. They're the second project now with the Rotary Club of Singapore for a project that's $150,000. Isn't that Rotary? It is Rotary. Global grant with the Rotary Club of Singapore, and they are 5 years old. They started in a table not bigger than this one in my dining table in my home. My wife Denise and Alicia and some of the members started the club. With 8 members, they now have 52. So it's just a different way to make Rotary. Why should we offer the possibility of doing Rotary in a different way for people who are not attracted to our clubs? Tell me why not? I'm willing to give it a try. So this is my club, I love it, I wouldn't change it. Because that's my turf. I've been there 44 years. I've been formed and deformed by that club. Right? That's my way of doing Rotary. That's the way I perceive Rotary. But is that the only way to do it? My wife proved otherwise. You're in a very successful club in a different shape and format.
Amen.
Yep. And that's why my club today, by accepting new ideas, my club, when my father was a Rotarian back in 1964, so I come from 60, 70 years of Rotary. My club had 45 members. Today we have 162. My sponsor club, São Paulo, in 1974, they had 504 members. They now have 81. So I know what is declining membership, believe me. If you do not accept change, you are going to decline. You are going to die. It's simple. There's no secret. If you're not open to change, change of mindset is the most important rule, because the world is going to change regardless of what you think, of what your club thinks. If they don't change, they're going to become irrelevant. That's the final sentence. You can engage former members. You can reach out to youth. As said, I came from the youth exchange. So I'm telling our friend, Andre, I'm telling our friend here from Czech Republic, Ostrava, I'm telling him, you have to become a Rotarian in the future. Why? Because I'm asking you to do the same thing I did. I'm not asking you to do anything that I have not done myself. We must have this sense of payback, service above self. Many younger people serve Rotary when it's convenient, and then all of a sudden they run away from Rotary. Those people should feel committed to Rotary, to give back, just like I am committed to 44 years after. Wow, after what? Jeez. I was an exchange student in 1970, 50 years. 50 years of exchange student in Minnesota, White Bear Lake. A life-changing experience for me. Not because of the language. I speak several languages. It was not a language experience. It was a life-changing experience because I was confronted with somebody else's perspective. And I learned to respect that. Isn't that important in today's world? That we can listen and respect somebody else's perspective without insulting somebody in social media? I learned this basic lesson here in this country. You taught me that. I lived in a dictatorship back in '75 in my country, and the first person who told me I lived in a dictatorship was my high school teacher, history teacher, here in White Bear Lake, Mountsview High School. That was more important than learning English, I tell you. And I'm thankful for Rotary for all of that. Fellowships and road action groups. Those people are passionate. They're passionate about everything. They're passionate about hepatitis, about cancer, about environment. I have contact with environmental people in Rotary, RAG, SRAG, WashRAG, because I'm involved with COP30, right? COP30 is going to happen in my country during my year as president, in the middle of the Amazon. I have to be there. Rotary has to be there. We will be there. Those people are fanatics, in a good sense. They are passionate. We talk to the hepatitis people. They got to be in contact with Dr. Francis Collins of the National Institute of Health, or at least he was until last weekend. I don't know today. But, he called me and said, Mario, I want you to engage Rotary in our hepatitis effort to test every single American citizen until 2030. It's a bill that's going for the plenary in Congress, $11 billion to test for hepatitis every single American citizen over the next 5 years. And I said, what do you want from Rotary, Dr. Francis Collins? He said, I want your ubiquity. You are everywhere. You have 272,000 volunteers in the US. That's invaluable. That's the biggest NGO I can imagine. We don't realize that. We take it for granted. But to the outside people, whether you talk to government or the private enterprise, they see us as we are. People with leadership, quality, willingness to serve without asking anything in return. What better army could you build? You know, Rotary has the best army on the planet. Army that unites for good. We don't unite for destruction. We unite for good. We unite for build-up. Unite for the good agenda. And finally, embrace new clubs formats that as I cited, as I mentioned in my wife's own experience. I think we could attract a lot of different people, younger people who are professionals and cannot drive from Wall Street to Main Street to have lunch at 12 noon on Wednesday. They take an hour and 35 minutes to get there, an hour and a half to have lunch, an hour and 35 minutes to get back. That's 4 or 5 hours out of their Wednesday agenda. They cannot afford to do that anymore. And we have to recognize this. This is a different world. If Rotary doesn't keep up with the pace of change, we will become obsolete. We will become irrelevant. If that's the least thing I want to do as a Rotary president. I want a Rotary president. I want a Rotary presence everywhere, relevant, playing a role in our communities, playing a role in our societies, and uniting for good. We are not about division. We are not about polarization. We are not about borders. We are about bridges. We're about building bridges, not borders. Regardless of whatever agenda, we were born to build bridges amongst people, not to build borders or to build constraints. And that's what makes me a Rotarian. That's what we intend to do in 25, 26. If there is any more time, I think I blew up the time several minutes. Right? About 25 minutes on. Was supposed to last 20, it's like 45. But if you are still willing to make questions, I would be happy to try to answer them.
You could do one or two.
I could do one or two? Yeah. People ask me, Mario, do you mind taking questions? I said, no, do you mind my answers? As long as you don't mind my answers, I'm more than willing to take questions.
What was your most profound moment in Rotary and why?
Yeah.
Oh boy, just one.
44 years, wow. I would have to look at my gigabytes of memory here. You know, I had the privilege. I have the privilege to be engaged in Rotary very early on. But I'll tell you one experience that showed me what Rotary could be. It's not a service activity, because my club is very good at service. Service was a routine in our agenda. I was a Rotarian 6 months when I was invited to be the aide of a past RI president of the convention in São Paulo. I'm talking about 1981, not this convention 2015. I'm old enough to go to the previous convention in my country, 1981. But I was 6 months old, and I had the privilege to be the aide to a past president called William Robbins from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which happened to be the president when I was living in the States, 74, 75. It was a coincidence. I was his aide. I was 24 years old. Can you imagine a 24-year-old Rotarian being the aide of a past RI president? So I was shaking and quivering, and said, "No, no, Mario. I'm just a normal Rotarian." So no, but you are an extraordinary Rotarian, Mr. Robbins. Said, "No, Mr. Robbins. I'm Bill. I'm a past presidents are not extraordinary Rotarians. They are ordinary Rotarians with an extraordinary opportunity to serve." And then I said, "Wow, this guy is different." Because some of my club presidents were really snobbish. And this past president of Rotary International was really humble. He was humble. I said, "President Robbins, I verified in your agenda there is an opening on next Thursday." Because I had his agenda, obviously, I was his aide, so I controlled whatever he wanted to be or he had to be, and brought him to the places. "And you have an opening, would you give us the honor to visit my club?" It was like a 30-minute drive from the hotel he was staying at. He said, "Yeah, of course." Okay. A pastoral president visiting my club. I said, "Wow," I warned the president, said, we were in for a surprise tonight." And then we arrived early, the club was not open yet, and I said, "Would you mind, I lived a couple blocks. Can you imagine the apartment of a newlywed, 6 months old marriage? We don't have furniture, we just have some boxes, wooden boxes." We didn't even have the furniture. And I said, "Would you mind having a glass of whiskey with me before we go to the club?" He said, "Of course, I love whiskey." So I took him to my humble dwelling, which was a couple blocks away from my club. And that really impressed me because, this guy was the past Rotary president. He could be anywhere. He could be with kings, he could be with the Pope, he could be with the President of the Republic, he could be with the CEOs of big companies, like I've been already with the CEO of BMW in Munich, having breakfast with him because he invited me, he's a Rotarian. I said, this guy could be anywhere, but he's here with a simple, humble, 6-month-old Rotarian. This organization is really something else. If this organization has elected this guy to be the president, and he is still humble and down to earth and simple as I am, this organization is worth belonging to. I had the privilege. I know it's not very common, but I had the privilege to serve, and I could meet the brightest Rotarians you could ever think of. Bishai Hataku, Paulo Costa, Cliff Doctorman, Frank Develing. Wow. I had the privilege to serve as aide to them, and the lessons I've learned are invaluable. They're still whispering in my ear when I need some instruction from upside. Another? Said 2 questions? Yep.
Thank you. You've been witness to many Rotary directors and many years of Rotary. Right now, this year, it seems we've reached a bit of a crisis with polio eradication. And I wonder if you have a few words that you can give to this area and these clubs about what your plans are to drive Rotary to finally achieving polio eradication.
Yeah, that's a good one. I was a trustee 4 years with the Rotary Foundation, so I had the privilege to serve as a trustee before becoming president, which is very worthy knowledge to me right now. I was in Pakistan last October. I was visiting Karachi. I want to see the country because I get a lot of reports. And I like to read reports, but I like much better to talk face to face, eye to eye. So I went to visit Karachi, and we went to see the vaccinators, or the polio vaccinators, who are always the target for the terrorist forces in Pakistan. 40 vaccinators, 38 were women. 38. Receiving minimum wage and putting their lives at risk for a minimum wage. Really something. It showed me people on the battlefront, what they're facing, the kind of peril they're facing. I'm scheduling a visit to Pakistan, Islamabad, to talk to the Prime Minister and the Chief of Army Staff. I don't know who rules the country. They have a very powerful military. So I was advised to meet not only the Prime Minister, who holds the political power, but the Chief of the Army, who can collaborate with us by supplying soldiers to monitor and do the surveillance of our vaccination teams. That's what I'm going to ask. And I'm going to hold them accountable for the $461 million that Pakistan already received through grants of the Polio Plus Committee. The country with the highest level of beneficiaries, the highest amount of money donated by Rotary is in Pakistan, $461 million US, according to the latest account. So I was a military myself. So I think I can talk to those people and said, you know, we need your cooperation to put an end to this. We are putting the money. What's your contribution to the table? Because we cannot do this on your behalf. It's your country, it's your kids. We are protecting our countries and our kids in the long run, but in the short run, it's your clubs, it's your country, it's your kids that you should be protecting. What are we going to do about this? If we don't have control over what is happening there, we will never finish it. We must have control. I had a meeting with John Germ, whom I'm going to meet tomorrow in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm going to be on the paths with him. And I told him, I said, John, we have to tighten the screw, you know. We have to put a little bit of pressure because we're putting money. But what is their take? What is their contribution? Are they deploying soldiers to help us with the vaccinators out in the field because they're being assassinated? Are they going to change the rules like they keep changing from door-to-door visit to a mosque visited? That changes completely the scenario, right? If you can visit door-to-door, you can identify which kids are exposed to the polio. If we visit mosque, the kids have to go to the mosque with their mothers. So one small change for them in terms of religious orientation changes the game for us entirely. So we want to have a face-to-face, frank, candid conversation like I'm having with you now about membership. I won't change, I promise you. I'm candid and straightforward. I'm going to ask them, what else do you need from us? Or do you want us to step back? Because I want to see what you are bringing to the table. I can tell you what we are bringing to the table. And I recognize we have to take a more proactive approach. And by the way, Mike McGovern and Hoga Kanak are going with me, so I'm going to be escorted with more knowledgeable people than myself. To end this, I just want to leave you with one thought. 3 types of leaders that I know. The leaders who make it happen, the leaders who let it happen, and the leaders who are surprised by what happened. What type of leaders are we? Make it happen, right? Thank you very much.